سلام دوستای عزیز، امیدوار هستم جور و صحتمند باشین. امروز تاریخ 20 نوامبر است سال 2022. دیگه ما و کامل جان همراه یاسمین جان، امید جان، نوید جان کسته ریم طرف دندنانگ. دیگه امروز مراسم چهلم شهدای کاج است. دیگه ما کسته به یاد شهدای کاج دیگه موریم در این محفل شرکت مونیم، کوشش مونیم خلاصه کسته مراسم را خلاصه تحت کوشش قرار بدهیم و با شما دوستان شریک بسازیم. دیگه این در مسیر راست، دیگه هوای ملبورن خیلی بارانیه، دیگه بهار است، دیگه این دیگه خیلی دیگه تقریبا 3 هفته است که بارندگی دوام داره. دیگه این میرخم دیگه باشت که بارندگی میله نمیله، دیگه کی بال نه کی باره. دیگه این مثال کسی کاملا جان جان خواه رفته یاسمین جان. سلام دوست عزیز، خوب هستین؟ صحتتان خوبه؟ بخیر هستیم؟ مو از چینل کاملا محبی کسته هستیم. می برنامه را کسته در ویدیو میگیریم پخش مونیم. امروز در موقع پیش لایبرری دندنانگ هستیم. شما میشه بگین که برنامه به چی مناسبت است؟ مراسم چه خاطر است؟ خود معرفی کن.
تشکر. ما اول نام چینل تون چیندم. به هر صورت ما از هر فرصتی برای دادخواهی استفاده میکنم و این فرصت غنیمت میشمارم. در ملبورن استرالیا هستیم. برنامه چهلم شهدای کاج است. یک برنامه علمی و مردمی است برای دادخواهی برای طولانی‌ترین نسل‌کشی هزارها در 130 سال گذشته، به خاطر که هزارها در داخل افغانستان به صورت سیستمیک زن، مرد، کودکش در شفاخانه، در زایشگاه، در قبرستانی، در عروسی، در اداره تذکره، در کلب ورزشی، در راه، در جاده، در نانوایی، در هر جای مورد ترورها و نسل‌کشی هدفمند قرار می‌گیرد. و این ترور فقط ترور جسمی نیست، متاسفانه زبان ما را، هویت ما را و تمام اصل هویتی ما را تحت فشار قرار داده. و این من از تمام هزارهای جهان می‌خواهیم که گره اولی که متحد شوند و همه اعتماد کنند که این نسل‌کشی و رسمیت شما شود. 140 روز پیش کسی فکر نمی‌کرد که اشتراک به 1 میلیون برسد. امروز سبا است که اشتراک به 20 میلیون برسد و این به 100 میلیون هم میرسد. دیر یا زود این نسل‌کشی رسمیت خواهد یافت در سراسر جهان. اما اونمو کشورها مهم است که در اول این به رسمیت بشناسه و راهگشا و همکار ما باشند و همچنین همه عزیزهای ما که در سراسر دنیا به صورت متفق القول کار میکنند برای به رسمیت شناخته شدن از این نسل‌کشی.
تشکر دوست عزیز، تشکر. سلام خانم حیدربک، ما کسته از چینل کاملا محبی فامیلی ولاگز. این برنامه مناسبت به چی خاطر است؟
با عرض سلام خدمت بیننده‌های عزیز و تشکر از چنل خوب شما
کاملا محبی فامیلی ولاگز.
کاملا محبی
فامیلی ولاگز.
بارانی. ما زهرا هستم، زهرا حیدربک. من 1 سالی هست که ساوت ایست ساکن شدیم و نمایندگی بیشتر از هموطنان و مخصوصا فارسی زبانان هزارها آمدیم اینجا در این برنامه که به مناسبت چهلم شهدان کاج برگزار شده شرکت کردیم. این برنامه فقط مراسم چهلم نیست، بلکه مراسمی هست برای دادخواهی و برای عدل و عدالت برای فامیل‌هایی که در افغانستان هستند و همچنین خواستار ویزای دائمی برای پناهجویانی هستیم که داخل استرالیا هستند. فعال حاضر جریان دارد و خواستار حمایت دولت حکومت جدید استرالیا هستیم که از فروشی هزارها را متوقف کنند و دادرس مردم هزار خواستان خیلی خوشحالیم که امروز در کنار بیشتری از فامیلیا و خانواده‌های هستیم که ساکن شهر ملبورن هستند و احتمالاً در حمایت خود را نشان می‌دهند و بازم تشکر می‌کنم از چهلم شما که اطلاع رسانی می‌کنید واقعا صدای ملت افغانستان و صدای ملتی هستید که در استرالیا 12 سال است که بدون سرنوشت و ویزای موقت هستند.
تشکر خانم ایدان، تشکر. سلام دوستای عزیز، امروز مراسم چهلم شهدای کاج موقع دندنانگ استرالیا است. ما از طرف چینل کاملا محبی فیملی ولاگز است با خانم شکیبا است مصاحبه کنیم، از زبان خودشان بشنوید.
Hi everyone, this is Shakiba Vladi. Today we are gathered here for the 14th of Kutch Martyrs. We are gathered here to have a voice to show the world that they should stop Hazara genocide. We have suffered enough. The world has to have a voice and stand against the Hazara genocide. And I hope this message finds people around the world that they are like, it's not a thing, we don't care, their people should stand against it, but it's our responsibility as a human being to stand for each other, to have a voice for each other, and stop this cruel, whatever people, to stop killing Hazara genocide.
تشکر.
Yes, I'd like to invite everyone to sit down so we can start our event tonight in about 10 minutes. Thank you. من باز هم خبر به خبر کشته می شوم. هر جا همیشه شام و سحر کشته می شوم. معلوم نیست آخر این تاریکی در کجاست، تا کی در این قضا و قدر کشته می شوم. با عرض سلام و عرض تسلیت خدمت خانواده های شهدای مرکز آموزشی کاج و آرزوی شفای عاجل برای مجروحین این حادثه می کنیم، به خصوص در این روز چهلم. به عنوان یک مهاجر جا دارد در این لحظه یادآوری کنیم از مردم بومی و صاحبان اصلی کشور و اعدای احترام خود انجام بدیم به بزرگان آینده، حال و گذشته آنان. بازم خوش آمدین عزیزان. به خاطر حضورتان در این برنامه و همچنان جا داره از برادران هموطنان گرامی ما که در برنامه تشریف آوردن و در این روز 48 در از اظهار همدردی خود را با ما شریک ساختند. Our program tonight includes a photo exhibition, video show, storytelling by students, speakers from the Hazara community, speeches by members of parliament and members of Greater Dandenong City Council, live music performances. I would like to take some time now to acknowledge our special guest tonight, the Honourable Dr. Tien Q MP, Mayor Eden Foster, Councillor Jim Mimeti, Ms. Karen Broadley, Mr. Timothy Dragon, Mr. Malik Zavir, Mrs. Annette Samuel, Mr. Manju Hanuman Tarayapa, Mr. Alex Breskin. همانطور که آناهیتا جان یادآوری کردند، در این برنامه اعضای دولتی و محلی استرالیا را با هم داریم و همچنان حامیان مهاجرین نیز تشریف آوردند که حضورشان را تشکری می‌کنیم. در این روز چهلم آمدیم که پا به پا یک جا باشیم و با حضور یکدیگر افتخار و قدرت اعلام کنیم، نه تنها در استرالیا و ملبورن بلکه در تمام جهان، که ما امروز از دیروزتر قوی تریم و میتونیم فروترانه استاد شویم و خواهان عدالت خواهران و برادرانمان در افغانستان باشیم. به خصوص گلهای پرپر شده من در محل آموزشی کاج. خوب میشه که یک صدا بگوییم Stop Hazara Genocide, Recognize Hazara Genocide و مهمتر از او هزاره بودن جرم نیست. حتما این سه جمله را یادتان نره که در طول برنامه با همدیگر رو همزمان بگوییم.
The 40th day after someone's death, Chehlem has cultural and religious significance in the Hazara community. Memorial services, family gatherings, religious ceremonies, and other rituals are held to grieve and mourn and honor the memory of the departed. Events and demonstrations are being held across Hazara diaspora communities in major cities to remember the young girls and boys lost to this tragic attack and raise awareness of the ongoing, targeted, genocidal violence against the Hazara people. Today, we have gathered here to mourn and grieve together, to share each other's pain and agony, to remember and honor the young victims whose lives were brutally taken at the Kaj Educational Center in Kabul on September the 30th. While they were preparing for an exam in a crowded classroom, nearly 60, I repeat, young Hazara lives were taken from us, each with their hopes and dreams for their future and the future of their people and nation. Their only crime was being a Hazara.
و حال دوست دارم سوگندنامه کاج بخوانم که خواهرها و برادرانمان در افغانستان در مرکز آموزشی هر صبح میخواندند و او است به عنوانی فصلی از نسل جدید، نسل آگاهی و نسل خسته از تیر و تفنگ در برابر تمام ناملایمات زندگی تسلیم نشده و برای یک جامعه کوشا، قدرت و آزاد و آگاه بیش از هر کسی تلاش خواهم کرد. امیدوارم تک تک ما این گوهرنامه رو، این سوگندنامه رو هر روز بخوانیم و به یاد از این برای هزاره و دولت و همچنان مردم خود خدمت کنیم. به این مناسبت از تمام شما خواهش میکنم برای یادبودی از شهدا یک لحظه سکوت کنیم.
We will now observe a moment of silence in remembrance of the young Hazara lives lost. Young lives, bright futures, aspiring bulls. These are the stories of the victims of Kaj Educational Center. Ms. Firishta Hashmi will join us now on stage to tell their story for us to remember forever.
I would like to begin today acknowledging the traditional and custodian of the land on which we gather today, and pay my respect to their elders, past and present. Good evening. Thank you for coming here today to stand in solidarity with the members of our community. I stand in front of you today as an Australian, as a member of a prosecuted ethnicity, and as a human, in the hopes of reaching out, connecting, and sharing my pain with everyone that's here. I would like to take a moment to touch upon the lives of some of the people who are not here with us today. Students with aspiration and dreams, students who are trying to do their best to create a better future for themselves, not for themselves, but for their country. I am honored and humbled to be here sharing these stories to the world today. I know that this will hit home for some people, like myself, but I hope that these glimpses into these individuals' lives capture both the hope and fears of young women living in a country that does not guarantee their basic need of safety and freedom. Fatima Amiri, a 17-year-old girl who attended Kaj Center, finished among the top candidates in Afghanistan's toughest university entrance exam. A month after losing her eye in a suicide attack, Fatima was still recovering from her wounds when she sat the exam. Blinded in one eye, deaf in the other. I was happy to be able to sit the exam, but my pain did not allow me to be very happy, she said, with tears rolling down her eyes. The day of the exam, it had been nearly a month since I had stopped studying, as these days passed away with pain. I had gone through several operations and felt the absence of my friends. I went and told my friends who were martyred that I have succeeded. I have to continue my studies for them, even if it's hard for me. She scored 313 points out of the 360 on the Concours exams. A highly competitive exam with over 100,000 students sitting the exact same exam. It's hard to continue in these conditions, considering the situation in Afghanistan. But even if this doesn't improve, I am forced to continue. There is no other way for me, she said. I must continue in the memory of all those who have lost their lives while trying to achieve the same thing as I am. I have lost many things on this path. I have lost my loved ones. I have lost my sight, my hearing. If I give up now, then the things that I have lost will be in vain. Anisa Muhammad was 21 years old when she lost her life in such an unceremonious way. She wanted to become a doctor. She had won several prizes for her academic and religious pursuits. Her father, Muhammad Jawad, earns his income by selling fruit and vegetables on Kabul's many unpaved, pothole-filled side roads. He has used this money to scrape together the $9 monthly fee to put each of his 3 older children through university entrance exam preparation courses. I sold whatever I could from my cart so my daughter could reach her dreams. She wanted to become a doctor, but now she's under the dirt. My brilliant daughter was torn into pieces. Her still shocked mother said between the wails and tears. By 10 a.m. on that fateful day, Jawad and his older son, Abdul Rauf, had visited half a dozen hospitals searching for Anisa. At the final hospital, Jawad said he had came face to face with the bitter reality of life in Barchi. I stood there, searching through 20 dead bodies and 27 injured youths, looking desperately for my daughter, he said. Standing on the dirt road leading to their home, her brother shared that, if anything else, he wants his sister's death to be remembered as a proof of his people's drive for education. This country has been through so much violence, but we want to fight with pen, the 26-year-old pharmacy student said. We challenge anyone, but through education, not through another gun. If you want to face us, come at us with words and knowledge, not with bombs and bullets. I'd like you to take a moment to process that. We have gathered today not because we want validation for what's happened to the Hazara community. That is a fact. But we are here to make history. We are here to get justice, and we won't stop here. We will shout it from the rooftops. We'll shout it until our last breath. We'll shout it until we don't have voices. We will shout this until our sisters are safe. We will shout this, we will shout it for the lives that have been lost and the dreams that have been shattered. We will shout it for the mothers and fathers who hold their children a little longer and tighter each time they send them to school in the fear that they may not come back. We are here to make history. Thank you.
Thank you, Farishta John. As our community speaker tonight, I want to invite Shabnam Safar, who is chairperson at National Refugee-Led Advisory and Advocacy Group. She's commendable for her meaningful work in the line of serving the refugee and migrant communities in Australia and overseas. Please welcome Shabnam Safar.
Thank you. Salam and welcome, everybody. I would like to begin my remarks tonight by acknowledging once again the traditional custodians of the lands that we're all standing on right now, the Bunurong people of the Kulin Nations, and pay my respect to their elders, past, present, and emerging, and extend that to any First Nations people with us today. As a Hazara, as a refugee Hazara, it is so much more important that we recognize the genocide of the First Nations people. The pain, our pain and their pain are quite similar. And for us to realize that the settlement that we benefit from today here in this land has been built on injustices done to them, and we should be standing with them in that struggle for self-determination. You've all heard why we've all gathered here today, what the significance of a 40th day of mourning is, what the significance of the Chehlm event is, although not the 40th day to the count, but I believe the event was also postponed a week due to weather conditions. So thank you all for being here and coming despite Melbourne's weather. Today we're gathering once again to mourn and grieve together, to share in each other's pain and agony, because it's non-stop. It's happening way too often, way too regularly.
We come together in solidarity with each other, with our kin, with our family members, with our sisters, brothers, no matter which part of the world they have been displaced to. But we also come together here today to raise our voices and say enough is enough. How much more can we endure? How much more can people take? How much more can Hazaras take? On September 30th this year, we were all shaken to our core once again as we woke up to the news of the tragic, brutal, but cowardly act that took nearly 60 young Hazara lives from us. And as you heard just now from Farishta Jan, each of those lives taken was an aspiring doctor, scientist, engineer, writer, artist, leader, who had all gathered together in a crowded classroom in pursuit of education, practicing for a university exam. Their lives were taken when they were pursuing the most sacred entity, and their crime being a Hazara. Most of the young students who lost their lives that day were young girls, because the coward suicide bomber detonated himself in the crowded classroom where the segregation of genders have been established by the Taliban, who took over the country last year. But killing of our children, killing our youth, is a special kind of evil. A calculated, vicious, sinister, purest form of hatred. A systemic and systematic act of erasure. Afghanistan's history is one of the most complex and intricate in the world, with centuries of foreign interferences, invasions and occupations, all because of its geopolitical significance in the region, and various superpowers and their pawns have come and had a piece of the country. And the Hazaras have borne the brunt of all of that, at least since the establishment of the Afghanistan as a modern state dating back to 1890s. Our history as Hazara people is riddled with ethnic cleansing, mass dispossession, forced displacement, social economic exclusion, and our constant struggle for recognition, our constant struggle for self-determination, our constant struggle for justice, no matter where we have been in the world. It's a pain that unfortunately each and every one of us here today is familiar with, but not immune to, because it's a pain that we don't get used to. It hurts and it burns just as much every single time. Every one of us here today have picked up the phone every time there is an attack. We call our loved ones, we call those we have left behind, and we desperately wish to hear a hello on the other end, because we don't know if we would or no. They have come for our young, they have come for our old, they've come for our men, our women, even our unborn babies. They've come in our homes, our schools, our mosques, our workplaces, our roads. Nowhere has been left safe for us. But this genocide is not a new phenomenon, and I really want to stress that. We don't want this to be diluted by what happened in Afghanistan last year, in August last year, when the Taliban forcibly took over. The genocide and the justice, recognition of justice, or the battle for recognition of these cowardly and genocidal violence is not new. And it's not limited to Afghanistan as well. In Iran, where majority of the people from Afghanistan who have been displaced are Hazaras, they're treated as second-class citizens, barred from education and employment, deployed to fight Iran's dirty war in Syria, because the alternative is their families getting deported. In Pakistan, despite Hazaras living there for nearly 2 centuries, they're still treated as second-class citizens, and target killings have always been a reality that those of us who come from Pakistan are very well familiar with. In Australia, according to Census 2021, there are nearly 42,000 of us, nearly 42,000 Hazaras in Australia. And that number is severely underreported. Why? Because when for generations your identity has been used as a weapon against you, when you and your ancestors have repeatedly been shown that your existence is not welcome in the world, you learn to hide your identity very well. You internalize your own oppression and you disconnect with your roots. There are some members of the community here who put a really well thought and well executed campaign together last year, raising awareness and education to record ourselves as Hazaras when census was carried out. Hazaras constitute one of the largest ethnic groups of asylum seekers here in Australia, and therefore subject to Australia's harshest and most punitive asylum and refugee policies here in Australia. The majority of those who are suffering on temporary protection visas are Hazaras. So no, the genocide is not in Afghanistan only. Our people are not only dying in Afghanistan, they're not only being targeted in Afghanistan. The pain follows us wherever we have gone. The policies continue to impact us no matter where we are. When we talk of genocide, we don't just mean mass murders and killing of our kin and our loved ones in cold blood. We also mean systemic erasure of our existence in the world. We also mean destruction of our culture, our art heritage, our mother tongue, our way of life, and forced removal and displacement from our ancestral lands. Today, Hazaras are scattered across the world and speak multiple dialects of Hazaragi language, and many who don't even speak it at all. Generations like myself have been displaced and grown up in exile, away from our own ancestral lands and our way of life, never knowing or feeling home anywhere. If we cannot feel home in Afghanistan, what hope is it there for other countries in the world? We've never had the privilege to go about life speaking in our own language. We've been separated from our families, our loved ones, separated from our ancestral love and wisdom. We've been forced to learn and adapt to other cultures, whether that has been in Afghanistan or outside, over and over again. And at times, we have internalized that so much that we're ashamed at times of our own roots because of what the world has done to us every time we have shown our identity. But there is another truth to it. Hazaras are the most hardworking, driven, entrepreneurial, progressive, equality and justice-seeking people, not just in Afghanistan, but here. Take a look yourself in Dandenong right now. Everywhere that Hazaras have called home, they have excelled in every field that they have participated in. There is a drive, there is a hunger for success in Hazaras. And for our guests who have come to join us here in solidarity today, this is the face of multicultural Australia. When we say that we're proud of the diversity of the people in multicultural Australia, we should also show up, like you have today, for each other and share in each other's pain. Because the Hazara people of Afghanistan share close ties with Australians, including family ties, common values like love for education. Our young ones, our children, our youth are dying because of our love for education, because it's that education that is going to get us in those systems where we can make changes for ourselves. And that's what people don't want. Australia spent 2 decades in Afghanistan helping the people of Afghanistan strengthen these values and found eager friends in Hazaras because the values are the same. We want the same for Afghanistan. These ties of kinship, shared values, and this special relationship that Australia has had with Afghanistan for the last 20 years, they do raise moral and ethical, but also legal obligations for Australia. This is not an issue of Afghanistan. This is not just something that the Hazara diaspora come together every now and then. This is very real. This is a real issue here in Australia that needs to be addressed. I do want to take this opportunity to especially thank the Greater Dandenong City Council for passing a motion to recognise the Hazara genocide, leading by example. That's what allyship is. That's what solidarity is. We thank you because we feel seen, we feel heard. Yes, it might not be something that the Dandenong Council alone can tackle, but from small drops, we can create oceans, we can create waves. And on that note, I also want to thank the Queensland Labor Council who has passed a motion as well, an official motion in recognition of this genocide. Alongside those, here today, the community who have gathered now, the community who gathered here nearly 40 days ago on the 9th of October, in 5,000 or more than 5,000 of us who gathered here that day, we were calling for the same thing, no matter where we were, in Melbourne, in Sydney, Adelaide, Brisbane, across Australia. We're calling on the Australian government to formally recognise and condemn the dramatic escalation of violence against the Hazara people in Afghanistan as genocide. And it takes little actions from each and every one of us here tonight. A small show of solidarity, a small post on social media, an interview with the media here and there, it all adds up. We're also asking the Australian government to convene an emergency roundtable with the Australian Hazara community to hear about our grave concerns that the Australian Hazara community here hold for our family members, for our loved ones and relatives in Afghanistan. Those of us who are on SHEV and TPV, as of yesterday, there have been some restrictions lifted, but they have been barred from seeing their family members for over 10 years, from ever having the chance to reunite, to rebuild their lives here in Australia. Some of us here may have lost family members in the recent attack. We've also asked the Australian government and Australian politicians to form a parliamentary friendship group to focus on issues of the Hazara community, both in Afghanistan and here in Australia, because these issues aren't isolated to Afghanistan. And on that note, I do have a message for our community members as well. We desperately and ruthlessly need to unite and need to get behind each other. We need to, because our power and our strength lies in our unity. Don't let the enemies of 2 centuries ago still win in their vision, because that genocide of 2 centuries ago is still active and it's still following us. Earlier, this is a little something to finish on. The MCs here read out the Saugantnama of the Kaj students, and what that meant was the oath that the students at the Kaj Learning Centre took. And before I read out the Saugantnama or the oath for you, I do want to also point out the significance of Kaj and what Kaj actually means. There's a pine tree here. Kaj is a pine tree. And the significance is that it displays immortality and eternal life, because it retains its leaves throughout winter. It remains strong. And I cannot find a better metaphor for what the Hazara people have been through and for how they come up, they stand up time and time again and continue on our journey for justice and recognition. The Kaj oath that the students take at the Kaj Learning Centre every day goes like this. As a turning point of the new generation, an enlightened generation, a generation tired of bullets and guns, I promise to myself and my fellow companions that I will not give in to life's obstacles. For a diligent society, a mighty society, an open and enlightened society, I will try harder than anyone else. And that extends to each and every one of us here today. We need to try harder than anyone else for ourselves and for those who come after us. Thank you.
Thank you, Shabnam John, for your power.